Everyone, and welcome back to recap session number 6. You've made it this far, that's great. So last week was our lecture night, and we talked about how circuits work. We talked about how breadboarding works and all the components on your breadboard, how to put everything together and make circuits that do stuff, some pretty cool stuff. You haven't actually gotten to see your circuits do anything cool yet. So, since tonight is an application night, we're going to take what you learned last week, or last video if you're watching this in an order, and we're going to kind of combine everything you learned and build a couple circuits tonight. We're probably only going to get to one, and it's going to be a fairly short video because all we're really going to be doing is building a circuit, but I am going to walk you through the process of lighting up an LED. Using a breadboard, a few wires, resistor, and an Arduino. And we're going to go through the process of how you set all that up. It's probably only going to be about a 15-minute video all in all. Pretty short, maybe even 10 minutes. We'll see how much detail we get into. And after watching this video, you'll be able to do the homework that I assigned in class, and we'll talk about that at the end of the video. Alright, without much further ado, let's go ahead and try and build a circuit. Okay, so all the stuff that we have here is pretty much everything you're going to need for this circuit. So a couple things I like to have on hand. I like to have a pair of pliers with me at all times, and you're going to probably see why in this video. I like to, well, you're going to need your cable to plug in the Arduino to your USB port on your computer. You could also, if you wanted to, power your Arduino using an adapter like what I have here, which is actually a 9-volt battery adapter. So you can actually plug your Arduino in through using 9 volts, a 9-volt battery, and you can plug it in like so. Now my battery's dead, but this would work if my battery were actually working. So there's a few options there with that, but I just tend to stick with the traditional way of powering it using your USB port on your computer. This cable will have come with your kit, your Arduino kit. However, yours is most likely blue, but it will have the same ends as mine does here. One end, this end is going to plug into this in the Arduino, and the other end is going to plug into the USB port on your computer. So we're going to worry about that later, so I'll just move that out of the way. Okay, so first off, I like to make sure I have my breadboard and my Arduino powered like so. So usually they're both going to be facing away from me, and I like to line them up like this because it helps me make my connections much easier. So first thing, you want to make sure that you have 2 of these red wires. So I'm going to grab a second one because right now I just have one. So go ahead and make sure that you have everything that I have here. There we go. There's my second red wire. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our Arduino and plug the red wire into the 5 volts pin. So you can see the 5 volts pin right there. That's what I've plugged into. Now I plug the other end of my red wire into the positively marked rail, like so, all the way at the top, so that I have all of these positively marked pins open. Okay? Next, I'm going to take a green wire, and I'm going to plug one end into ground, the ground pin on the Arduino, and connect the other end of the wire into the negatively marked rail, so that now this blue rail, this negatively marked rail, is grounded all the way down. And this positively marked rail, as soon as I plug my board into power, will have 5 volts running all the way down. Okay, so now that I've done that, I'm going to connect my LED up. Now, if you look here, you'll notice that I have a short lead and a long lead on my LED. Traditionally, I like to take my shorter lead and put it closer to the negatively marked rail, since I'm going to have to run a resistor from this short lead over to the negatively marked rail. That's just my preference though. So what I like to do is I like to bridge what I call the gap. So I take my LED and I put one on each side of that gap, like so. So that's what I have there. So this is what I call the gap. This space where there's nothing there, no rows, no holes, no nothing. And so I just bridge that gap using the two leads. Next, I'm going to take my resistor, and your resistors will be straight out like this. So what I like to do is I like to hold it here and bend it down. And then I'll take this other end and I'll bend that down. And here's where I use the pliers. I like to straighten this whole thing out so it looks nice and neat. Like so. There we go. That's straight enough. Doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be straight enough to be able to get down in the holes. So now I go from this row where my negative lead is on my LED, and I will move this closer so that you guys can see it a little better. Sorry. Okay, so I take from that negative lead over to the negatively marked rail, and I put my resistor in. There we go. That should be good. And there we go. Now, this resistor and this short lead of my LED are in the exact same row. I personally put them in row 14. Honestly, it doesn't matter which row. I just did that because it was kind of the middle of the breadboard. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to power the positive lead. So I'm going to take my red jumper for power, and I'm going to connect it to the long positive lead on the LED and put it over in the positively marked lead, or a positively marked rail over there. So that is my completed circuit. So you'll notice if I take my, here we go, if I take this cable and I connect one end into here and I connect the other end into my computer, my LED has now turned on. If I were to take away the LED's power source, it turns off. If I put it back in, it turns on. If I were to take out this ground, it turns off because there's no longer a circle. I put it in, it turns on. And likewise for the power. So that is pretty much our one basic circuit. So what you're going to want to do for your homework is you're going to have to modify this circuit. Now, I'll give you a hint right now. The thing to think about is how this LED is getting its power. It's getting its power from this. Okay, so we're going to talk about your homework assignment in a moment, but just remember that if you remember that this LED is getting its power from this wire, it's really going to help you in the long run as to how to do this. Alright, I know that was extremely quick. I think that was like 6 minutes. But that's pretty much a full recap of what we covered in class. If you were able to build that circuit successfully, no issues, and your LED turned on, congratulations, you just completed this recap session. That's pretty much what it was all about. It was just to kind of introduce you to the fundamentals of actually putting stuff together on the breadboard, which if your LED turned on, you did that correctly, so great job. So for your homework, at least for the homework I assigned to the class, you still have to do this, but you have to turn the same LED on using a button rather than using the Arduino to turn it on, which is what we did now. You plug the Arduino in, boom, the LED turns on. You have to figure out how to do the same thing, but instead use a button to turn it on. So that's your challenge. Now, like I said, just recently, make sure you think about where the LED is getting its power from. Okay, the button needs to be that source of power, not the Arduino. So think about that. Hopefully, you will not run into any issues, and I think you can figure that out. As always, if you have questions, you can email me or the Slack chat. As usual, make sure you use the Slack chat. Everybody's using it. In fact, I've had to help several students already, so if you are confused, you can probably look at the comments that I've already put on there for the other students. So you can look at that and you should have no problems building your circuit. So you need to do that, and you also need to do a materials list, which I believe we talked about in class. But your materials list just needs to include all of the components that you used in your circuit. So all the jumpers, make sure you color code, make sure you write down the correct colors that you used of jumpers, right? Because red is PWR, which is power, green is ground, which is GND, and orange is signal, which is SIG. So make sure that you use the correct colors in your circuit. That is part of the homework assignment. So resistors, buttons, LEDs, breadboard, and Arduino. All those things have to be accounted for on your materials list. You also have to write like 1 sentence or 2 sentences describing what you want your circuit to do. And this is for every homework assignment when you have to build a circuit. For this particular circuit, all you have to do is write down to turn an LED on using a button. Very basic. It doesn't have to be very elaborate. Okay, good luck with your homework, and we will see you in the next recap session and in the next class. So good luck. As always, questions, go to the Slack chat. See you later.